Hello, welcome to this presentation of the Weaviate Python client. And yeah, I'm set out here to just give a little bit of an introduction into the client and also to show how a Weaviate project, how such a semantic analysis or yeah, some kind of interesting project using Weaviate could start out in a Python environment. And obviously we have to start with getting some data in. So I chose this data set here, 1,000,000 news headlines. One reason is that it's very simple, so you're gonna be able to follow along very easily. And it is also not, from the sheer size of it, not too big, so we're not gonna sit here forever. And it's, yeah, so obviously in a production environment we could just scale up Weaviate and get also much more data in, but in a local environment I think this is a nice starting data set. So yeah, let's get right into it. The first thing we want to have is obviously we need to import Weaviate. We can just pip install it with the Weaviate client. And then we need to get the data in, and let's have a look at this data frame. And we see right away we have two columns. One is really just a news headline, and one is a publish date. So when we think about the semantic context of a news headline, there is actually a little bit of a problem. Depending on how the newspaper works, the headline itself might not really indicate what the article itself is really about. So in a more serious attempt to maybe get information out of news sites or news articles, we probably want to add much more than just a headline to build a bigger context and get much more concrete information and just help to build a way bigger context. So the more data, the better, usually. Alright, but this out of the way, let's just get in. So the first thing we want to have is obviously we need a client. So we're just gonna use, so we have Weaviate imported here, so we can use it and get a client object. Client. So, and I have this running on the local host. And just to see what's running here, we're gonna get the meta endpoint. And as you can see, I run 22.19 at the moment, and I'm running on this contextionary, English contextionary. So I'm running the most current version that is currently out there at the time I'm recording this. And yeah, so now we have a client object, and the client object is actually created in a way where you can find all the API groups directly under it. So for example, we have a schema, we have query, we have things like batching and classification, and obviously the data objects to just add and remove things. So with an IDE that is a little bit helping you with showing you various functions that are available, you should be very quickly get into it, or otherwise you can obviously check out our documentation. It's very elaborate on how the client works. Alright, the next thing we need is a schema, and yeah, I created a small schema here. Let's have a look at this. It actually just creates one class, and I call this news for the moment. It doesn't really matter. And then we have one property text with the headline, and the headline is obviously very important for us in this example, because we have the headline itself gives the context of the entire class, and because it's the only real text value. And then we have a year and a month. So we see here the date, which is this number. It's formatted as an integer. So we're gonna split this up in the year and the month. And when we have this dict created, so we can just use a native Python dict because it's so compatible to the JSON format. It shouldn't be a big problem to use this. And then we can go with client.schema.create and then add the schema, and there we go. So we have loaded the schema. And yeah, now the next thing is we want to get some data in. So we want to get this data frame, just that we don't have to scroll all the time. Let's just open it here again. So we want to have the headlines in there, and we want to split this date up into the year and the month. So yeah, I'm gonna use batching for this because we just want to speed up the loading process. So let's create a batch, and for the batching we have this special batching object that just collects single things, and then we can commit this in one go to Weaviate and load everything in one go. So that's a things batch request. Let's create another object of this, and then let's say we have a batch size of maybe 1,000. So this is a little bit depending on how big your objects actually are, and since I'm on a local machine, I can choose a very big batch size, and if you choose a too big batch size in a more productive environment, you might run into timeouts or something like this. Then you can either adjust the timeout settings, or you have to reduce your batch size a little bit. So, or you horizontally scale and just make smaller batch sizes and horizontally scale it out, something like this. Alright, and then the next thing we want to do is we want to go over each of these rows and create an object for that, right? So let's just go for index and row in data frame dot iter rows, and then we're gonna create a dictionary that represents this object. So it's gonna need like a headline, a year, and a month. All right, and we call it news. So headline, and we can actually just get this headline. And yeah, for the year and the month, I'm gonna just copy this in now because it's not too interesting when I'm typing. So what I'm gonna do here is just I use the publish date, and then I'm gonna use the first 4 digits for the year, and then like the middle 2 here for the month. All right, and then we have news dict. So this is our thing that we want to add, and then we have to add it to the batch. So let's add thing, and then we're gonna take the news dict and also say the class. So this is just here, we call this class news. So I'm gonna also say that this is of type class news, right? All right, and that's basically it. Now we just have to commit the batch every once in a while. So let's go ahead and say batch size every 1,000 batches, every 1,000 things. I mean, we're gonna print the index, and then we're gonna client dot batch dot create things, and then also add our batch. And yeah, then we're gonna create a new batch, because otherwise we're gonna just append on the same batch over and over again, and that's obviously not what we want. We want to have a new batch. And then also when this is, because we are not finishing on a perfect part of 1000, so let's just run this commit message again. Yeah, and that should do it. Let's run this, and we see it's loading. And the loading is gonna take a while, so I'm just gonna jump ahead and see you in a few seconds when this is loaded. Alright, so we are back now and everything is loaded. And yeah, so we see here the output of the last batch actually. Just a quick note on this, obviously there's much more to these functions, so a lot of these client functions, they have optional properties that try to set sensible default values, but obviously you can customize all kind of things. And also we don't do a lot of actually we don't do any error management here or checking of the if the loading was actually successful. We just assume that, and it's also pretty safe to assume since the dataset is very limited, and also our schema and everything is very limited, so there is not a lot of space for error. But yeah, obviously you could in a more productive environment, you wanna check if everything was successful as you assumed. So now let's have a look at what we want to do next. So we want to go and query this data, and here we have the query we're gonna use. So actually we're gonna say, all right, we want to have this our things we just loaded, and we want to be able to filter them based on year and month. So we want to have a monthly base, and yeah, we're gonna also do an explore search, so to find the closest things that are connected to this concept. So I chose the concept dancing here, and we see on the right that we actually get something about ballet and dance production. But we also see already a problem with our data set. So for example, it seems that this one headline here is loaded twice. So there might need to be a little bit, so we work a little bit with dirty data here that might need some cleaning up actually. Alright, and also with the data set, let's say this is a little bit cherry picked here. We see there is actually something connected to dance, but if let's look at the next month, so we see there is no real connection to dance, so it chooses something that is still connected to dancing as a concept. So something like arts or music are still pretty close to dancing, but obviously those are not things that are directly over dancing itself. So yeah, we see that the confidence or certainty in this case also goes down to reflect that these things are not that deeply connected to our concept. Alright, so how can we get this query in here? So to create the where and explore filter, we're just gonna translate these filters directly into a Python dict. So we're gonna say operator, this is just becoming a string, and this becoming a string, this is staying a list of strings, and so we can basically one-to-one translate that into a Python filter, a Python dict. And yeah, how this is gonna look like is just, let me copy this in here. So this is just really one-to-one these two filters, and then I'm gonna package those into a nice function, and that's gonna allow us to search for a concept based on the year and the month. And now we're gonna connect these. Actually, we're gonna build this entire query here using a query builder. So we're gonna go with the client again and query, and then we're gonna get things. And here we wanna have the news class, and we gonna say, so let's have a look into this again. So get things news class, and then we're gonna state what we want to have here. So here we have everything, year, month, headline, and this underscore property certainty, but for our Python code here, we got just gonna be interested in the certainty. And then we say we wanna have this with an explore, and we're gonna add our explore filter dict, and then we also wanna have a with where, and we're gonna add the where filter, and we're gonna also say limit this to the top 100 results, and then we're gonna execute with do, and since this is a function, we wanna return this entire thing that is coming from this query. All right, let's just try this out. Explore headlines. Let's stay with the thing then. And 2008 we had, and March. And then we see this is how a result would look like. So we have this JSON level here, and data get things news. And then we just have a long list of results with the certainty. So, and then I created a small function that is using this long list here and creates an average of it. So let's remove this and paste this function in. So we have get average certainty, which calls our just created query, and yeah, we just gonna sum this up and then return the average. All right, and in the next step, we're gonna do this for all the years and months in this data set. So we're gonna go through the years and through the month, and then get the average certainty, and we're just gonna put this into a new Python pandas data frame, so that we can easily explore it and plot it. So yeah, I use this concept here, global finance crisis, banks, real estate. It doesn't really matter how the words are ordered, it's just about the concept they create, the kind of space they create. And yeah, then we can have a look at this data frame, and we see then we have now for every month. So because we convert here the date into this pandas date, it just says the first of every month, but we know it's an aggregation of the entire month. So, and then we have the average distances to the concept, to this concept here. All right, and if we now plot this, then hopefully we see that there is actually quite a spike in 2007, 2008, where this is, the headlines are much more connected to this kind of concept, obviously because there was the global financial crisis based on real estate speculations. And yeah, but we see still quite some problems here. So for example, this is quite noisy. We also see that there are two kind of low peaks, and I investigated this a little bit beforehand. So for example, what happens here on these two peaks is that those particular months have much less data than the other months. So in this case, what happens here is maybe there's just less news articles. So it's not really about, since we create an average, we would still should still get kind of the similar, but maybe just the economic section is missing, right? So if the economic section headlines is missing completely, then we just get things that are kind of connected to, I don't know, maybe crisis or banks, or it can be anything in any other section. And then we get these kind of problems. So we see that data set is maybe not ideal for this kind of analysis. So we would have to clean this up a little bit, find out what the problems are here. And then when we have like a very noisy area here, I would say this is probably because we just use headlines. Our context is made out by very small settings. And as I said before, let's imagine somebody is speaking here actually about the crisis, but the headline is something like, how we gonna go forward from this, or the unexpected winners of our current situation. This kind of headlines don't really say anything about the text, about the article itself, even though for the people at that time it might have made sense because it was in the context of the time. But yeah, for us, it would be very helpful if we would have really the entire text, but then this data loading and the example would be a little bit more elaborate. Also, the schema gets more complicated. So I just wanted to have this small thing to get started, and I hope this shows you how quickly you actually can get to kind of a graph, to get an exploration of your data, and to see that actually the client is very, very straightforward. So just using the API groups, just yeah, using it how you would in native Python. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you give Weaviate a try in the Python client. And I'm really interested for your feedback. So leave a GitHub issue or join our community Slack, or just write something on Stack Overflow. We are very active on all these things. So yeah, thank you for watching, and see you soon.